Hello, hello,
Hello,
hello.
hello.
Thank you, everyone, for joining today. This is Carla Michelle, and it's so great to have you here on the Strong Women's Network podcast once again. I have a special guest today, Dr. Zoe Shaw. But before we bring her in, I want to remind you to go ahead and subscribe, share, and invite other people to listen in. And let's get started. So, I have with me the great, the wonderful licensed psychotherapist, Dr. Zoe. She's a motivational speaker, a podcast host, as well as a life coach. And we do need some life coaches out there with her skill set. Dr. Zoe's column is called Grit and Grace Projects Online, or Woman's Magazine. I'm sorry, let me re-say that again. She has a column for Grit and Grace Projects Online Woman Magazine, and she's also been featured on oprahmag.com and in Recovery Today magazine. You can see her and talk with her and interact with her and all her great content on social media, especially on Instagram, where I follow her at Dr. Zoe Shaw. Dr. Zoe, how are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on the show. What a wonderful introduction.
Well, because it's all representative of you. So tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself, please.
Yeah, so you went over some of my professional stuff. I'm a mama of five. I'm a wife of 26 years. I'm a little bit of a fitness fanatic and a adrenaline junkie.
Mm.
Yeah, and I love encouraging and speaking to women and helping them find the strength that they didn't even know they had and working on their relationships with themselves.
And that is such a great segue to your book, which
Mm.
you have just released. It's A Year of Self Care, Daily Practices and Inspiration for Caring for Yourself.
Yep.
Gosh, tell us a little bit about the book.
Who doesn't need a little bit of that, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's really meant for that woman who either knows she needs to self-care and doesn't really know how to get started or wants to get deeper into her practice, doesn't have a lot of time, and just needs a little bit of help and maybe accountability and direction to care for herself well every single day. And so I took a lot of the self-care practices that I have learned that have kind of been forged in the fire of not taking care of myself over the years. And I put them into a book really based on the seasons of the year, seasons of life, just little practices to help you care for yourself every day in like 5 to 15 minutes a day.
Which I love the word you used, accountability. It is a accountability tool. I know
Mm-hmm.
as in therapy or in coaching, tools are important that you give your client.
Mm-hmm.
And this is definitely a tool. For those of you who do not have the book already, and I am honored to have a copy, but they are themes, and when you go through, and it's a daily direction, if you want to say, or opportunity that she gives, like for hydrating yourself, less media morning. But my favorite, I have to say, is the day of I celebrate my birth,
Uh-huh.
uh, November 29th. I thought this was great. Naked truthfulness.
Oh, yes. Love that one.
I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read it for the
Okay.
listeners. Sleep naked tonight. I mean, yes, okay. Sleep naked tonight. Whether you do this always or never have done this before. Practice being at one with your body for your nightly rest. As your bare skin is caressed by the sheets, give thanks for the intricate beauty of your senses. Give thanks for nerve endings that travel, throughout your body and up your spine to create a central experience in the brain. And I love that because not only are you giving me permission to sleep naked, which I'm thankful for,
You're welcome.
but you're also tapping into our senses. And I was reading something today and it talked about how out of tune we are with our senses. What we smell. I mean, we know we smell. but yet are we really taking in like what is this smell and what does it trigger? What good memory, some bad, but even knowing that with my body hitting the sheets, it's like it's really activating something in my entire body, which is powerful. So go ahead.
No, it is. And when you were talking about the senses, we are really desensitized, not necessarily physically, and probably a little undersensitized physically, but because we have this bombardment of so much information, so many noises, so many sights and colors, and with our media, that we feel very overloaded, and we often don't really slow down and experience
Mm,
the daily physical senses that our body would have paid attention to and maybe even craved, because we've kind of short circuited that. And so, yeah, that is a moment to be able to just come into oneself and focus on all of those senses that are really important for us to stay grounded in our present life and really grounded in the earth. And there's a lot of research about that too, which is also why in another entry I talk about walking barefoot outside and how
I
important
love
that
that.
is also for our bodies and our minds, and really just connecting our bodies with our minds. So, yeah, it's really, about a 360 view of self care. It's not just what feels good just to feel good, because that's empty. It's really about taking good care of yourself in all the ways: physical, emotional, spiritual, psychological, right? Relational,
Mhm.
relationship with yourself, relationship with others, because that's what self care is all about. It's not just one dimensional. And I think, it's in the media, it's really put out there one dimensionally. And that's why I wanted to write a 360 self care book.
And you did it. You did it. I even love this part that you say before you get started. I'm going to read that.
Mm-hmm.
It says, I will not simply check off the self care box. I am far more valuable and complicated than an item to be checked off. I commit to the deep, caring experience of getting to know myself intimately. I will enjoy the ride. Today, I solemnly swear that I will practice self-care in a meaningful way. What made you put that in there? I mean, you talk about media, but is that the reason or
Well,
what else did you see?
kind of, because I've noticed even in myself and in others, when we see somebody doing something that they tout as self-care, or somebody says you should do this, then we start
Mhm.
to make it like a guilt thing and a should, like, okay, I got to care for myself. Okay, what's caring for myself? Let me check that box off. Instead of
Mhm.
really sitting and focusing, staying in your lane, thinking about what you need, not what that other person does that's caring for them, and
Mhm.
honoring it so that it's an experience, not another thing we have to do.
I love it. It's just not another thing.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. And I think as you're a mom, I'm a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes that's how we that's how we look at it. Like, gosh, okay, I didn't do self-care. Like it's,
Right.
I'm gonna get in trouble. But that, it and the valuable part of it is sometimes I know we see a lot on Saturdays and Sunday self-care Saturday, self-care
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, and it becomes it is a great reminder, but there is like we can get in the tub and I can sleep naked. And you also have in here like date yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yeah. And when you said that whole self-care Sunday, self-care, whatever, that what happens with that is that we have this idea that self-care is a thing to be set aside and do when we have that luxury of doing. I did a podcast with the Hats podcast, and one of the guests, or the host, said, well, I really want to self care, but I can't always get a babysitter. And I was like, wait, stop right there. You don't have to
Hmm.
get a babysitter to self care. Self care shouldn't even just be on Sundays. It's not a big thing that you set aside for your life. It's something that you weave into your life, no matter what your life is. And so doing it once a week isn't enough. It's about figuring out how you can care for yourself every single day. And sometimes it doesn't even take any time whatsoever, because one little thing is the way that we talk to ourselves, right? just
Mm-hmm.
focusing one day maybe on shifting your self-talk or even being aware of your self-talk and changing the way you talk to yourself is self-care. And that doesn't take any time at all. That just takes intention.
Yes, I love it. Self-care, I'm going to go
Mm-hmm.
back, is saying things to yourself that bring you up, that strengthen you, that empower you. Like even looking in the mirror, because this came, saying I love you while you look at yourself in the
Yeah.
mirror. You know, that's so I accept you. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. Yeah, and we really miss it. And I like how you also have, we just, where we're taping, we just passed over Valentine's Day, but there was that love letter
Oh, yes.
that you put in there. There's nothing like being adored and cared for. So writing that love letter, to yourself or to someone, to someone, but yet to yourself is
Right, write
powerful.
it to yourself. I'm not gonna quote it perfectly, but who doesn't love getting that letter that just lifts you up and tells you how wonderful you are from someone that you care for and love, right? But you can be that
Hmm.
person. And little story, one of the things that made me put that in there is somewhere years ago, I decided to write a letter to myself. And I wrote it then, and I'm sure I must have read it. And then I just put it in a drawer and didn't think about it. And then years later, I was cleaning out, that drawer for some reason, and I pulled that letter out and I started reading it. I was halfway through the letter before I figured out that was from me. And reading
Wow.
it, it was just so uplifting. I was
Oh.
like, whoa, who wrote this to me? It felt so good. And so I
Mm.
started a practice of it because just discovering it in that way. And that's why I also ask you to mail that letter to yourself. It might sound silly, and yeah, you're going to spend a couple, whatever it costs, to send that letter to yourself, but getting it in the mail and opening it is a very different experience than just writing it and reading it right away. And that's why I encourage you to do that.
So
Yeah.
true. I love it. I have done that, and I've put a reminder on my calendar 6 months
Mm.
out to go and read that
Mm-hmm.
letter, and sometimes it's telling me how great I am, as well as my expectations of the things that are happening in personally in
Absolutely.
business, and they help me
Mm-hmm.
gauge where I am, and just to see, because I think the key thing is you put it away and then come back to it. It's just, you're right. It's so empowering. I love it. When I think about love, of loving ourselves, and in the face of, we're in the middle of Black
Mm-hmm.
History Month, and I think about our Black
Mm.
moms or women of color. So what do you see? Do you see a shift in the attitude about self-care from, basically, well, then next month is women in
Mm-hmm.
history, so Black woman in history to the Black woman today, are we taking better care of ourselves?
I wish the answer were yes. I don't feel that
Mm.
that is my response, though, to be honest with you. I think
Yeah.
maybe we're getting better. I think we're at least getting better in terms of using the words. I don't know if we're getting better in the actual practice of it. And when I think about Black women, when I think about, Black single moms, You know, that word superwoman, which is actually in my podcast, and the name of my podcast is the Dr. Zoe Show, but the subline is redefining your superwoman. And that
Mm.
term superwoman was meant to be a powerful word, but I think in some ways it's a
Mm.
burden. And Black women get applauded for being strong women. And what happens is that we can sometimes take that on, right? And we're trying to live out that strong woman, you know, description or idea of ourselves, and we shortchange ourselves in that process because number one, strength isn't about doing it all by yourself and not getting any help and not needing anything. True strength, I believe, has a foundation in wisdom, and part of wisdom is understanding when to ask for help, when to delegate, when to allow yourself to know yourself, explore yourself, not be strong, be weak. So there's so much there, I think, that
Mm-hmm.
we experience as Black women. And I think we have to learn to let go of the, I got it syndrome, as Elaine Fluker says so well, and really care for ourselves well. I wish we were doing it better. This is why I talk about it and put it out there, because we need to do it better. It's so important for ourselves and our families and generations to come.
I so agree. I was just talking to one of my mentees yesterday, the very thing you
Mm-hmm.
just said. That superwoman, and taking off that
Mm,
S on our chest, and being okay. And I even go as far as say, not just don't just take it off, burn it, because it's a definitely, I agree, it's a disservice to the men in
right.
our lives. It's a, it's a disservice to our boys and our girls, our children who are watching us, because what are we teaching them? What are they seeing? So what better thing for them to see us now taking care, finding harmony in what we do in our day, seeing us, talking affirmations to ourselves, or taking a long hot bath or shower, or slowly enjoying our food, and
Mm-hmm.
just whatever we don't show right now, because usually we're going to work and we're coming home, we're cooking and we're tired and we're done, and it's like showing them that woman who understands self-care. And this book, we're talking about it today, ladies and gentlemen, a year of self-care, daily practices and inspiration for caring for yourself. I'm here with Dr. Zoe Shaw, and we're just discussing the benefits of self-care. So, Dr. Zoe, have you seen someone's life, a client of yours, a friend, yourself, your family, really see a change?
Oh my gosh. Well, let's just start with myself.
Okay,
I think part
okay.
of the reason why I was able to write this book is because I spent so many years not caring for myself. I spent so many years as the superwoman, being applauded for all that I was doing, being such a great mom, a great professional, a great wife. And nobody looked at me and was like, how are you caring for yourself? And I didn't really learn that either. And, growing up, the importance of caring for myself, because the sacrificial woman, the sacrificial mother was so touted. So I would say it's me. And, I put a little bit of it in the forward of the book, that I got to a point where I was burned out. I felt completely depleted and resentful. And that's another thing I think that's important for us to use as a barometer. When we start to notice that we are resenting people around us, we want to blame them, we want to be angry at them. But what I like to tell you to do is to take that finger and point it back at yourself. If you're feeling resentful, it's because you're not caring for yourself. We are the only ones that can care for ourselves the best and uphold our boundaries. And when we care for ourselves and we respect ourselves, other people fall into place. Right? Right.
Well,
And
well, well.
so, yeah, that was me. And when I finally
I
got to
love
that
it.
point where I said, no more, I'm important, I matter, and I have to pour
Mm,
into myself,
mm,
it changed my life. It changed my relationships.
girl.
And that's what I'm encouraging the
Mm.
woman or the man who reads this book to do for themselves. And it shouldn't take that long. It took me way too long. So I hopefully this book will give you, some shortcuts so that you don't take, a million years like I did to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I believe it will, because, every day you have
Mm-hmm.
something for every day. And to really open the book, keep it by your bedside, or wherever you're drinking coffee or tea, or, wherever you stop, even if
Right.
it's in the bathroom, and just open up to that date. Keep a bookmarker in there so you don't have to go search too far. And do it. I mean, simple, do it. And if you have to make some adjustments for that, but do it. I just find it helpful. I'm looking at today as we're recording, it's
Mm-hmm.
February 19th, and it says release your
Mm.
ego. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to read this. It says, consider the most important relationship that you have today as you interact with that person, release your need to be right. Oh my gosh. And release the need to be right. Focus deeply on what that person is saying. Take an interest in what interests them. Check in with yourself and see if this fills you up. It truly is better to give than to receive, especially in cherished
Right.
relationships.
And so someone might go, well, wait, how is that self-caring? I'm focusing on them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Tell me.
And the reality is that when I talk about that 360 of self-care, it applies to your relationships as well. Because when you care for your relationships, you care for yourself. And what's important though is making
Mm.
sure that you're investing in the relationships that are healthiest for you to invest in, because I also talk about culling relationships that are not. But it's important that if you're going to be in relationship with someone, that you do focus on being present with them. And what happens is that gives back to you, and that is caring for you, because we do need to have relationships. Relationships are a part of having a healthy life. And so you have to invest in them. And that is self-care as well. And that's why, I talk, especially in
Mm.
February, about relationship with yourself, which I actually use that word first. And that's important. A lot of people will go, wait. Why are you saying relationship with yourself first? Because your relationship with yourself sets the foundation for every other relationship that you have, including your relationship with God, because it's a lens through which you see everything. And so you have to focus on that relationship with
Mm.
yourself. And then that allows you to work on, having healthy relationships with others. I love how you talked about today, but I also love how you talked about your birthday, because I'm finding out that a lot of people, when they get the book, the first thing they do is go to their birthday. This is what you said on my birthday. I
And
love
that's
that.
what I and you told me that your sister, what was that again? About
Oh,
not
that was
putting
about the
that in
sleeping
there.
naked. She like raised her eyebrows. She's like,
Yeah.
"What's that about?" Why? And she didn't think I should put it in there. I'm like, "No, I'm leaving that in there. It's important, number one." And then the other
Yeah.
thing is that I give so many practices and tips for self-care. And once again, we're not checking that self-care box off, right? So if it doesn't resonate with you, go to the next day. If it doesn't resonate you, go back to another one
Mm.
previously that you read that does, and do that again. It's all about taking care of yourself, and it being an experience, not a box to check off. But we're all different. And another friend of mine, she hates massages. She was like, "Oh, I would never get a massage. That doesn't do anything for me, a stranger touching my body." And I'm like, "Okay, massages are like heaven for me."
Heaven
Right.
for
So, but you
me.
know what? She needs to do her, and I'm going to do me, and that's all good. There's plenty in there for
Mhm.
every type of person. And that's what I encourage you to do. Just find what's yours.
I love it. And
Mm-hmm.
that's with
Yeah.
life too, isn't it, Zoe? It's like sometimes we try to fit by what we see or hear or read. And this is something to the year of self-care. It is just it's a tool, but it's not a fixture, meaning that you, like you said, you can change it up and you can make adjustments. But that's also in life. There are things that are shared on this podcast, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure on Dr. Zoe's podcast. These are things to help. They're not things to limit you and to box you in
Mm-hmm.
and you have to, this is, oh, but these are things that we know can assist and to take you to where you may desire to be, and knowing yourself. And that's the best thing you can do, is take care of yourself and to get to know yourself. And this is what the book is assisting you in doing. Once again, it's the year of self-care with Dr. Zoe Shaw. It's the daily practices and inspiration for caring for yourself. Where can
You
they
can get
get
it in
this
all the
book?
places now. It's at Target, Barnes and Nobles, Walmart, Amazon, of course, Bookends. Any place that sells books, you should be able to find it. And it's also coming internationally. I've had some people reach out and say, "When is it coming to the UK?"
Yay.
I'm not sure the date, but I know that it is going to be released worldwide. So hold on.
Oh, hold
Yeah,
on. Keep your
it is
ear to the
happening.
ground because it's happening. Oh my gosh. So before we close, what if any words of wisdom can you leave with us?
My word of wisdom, I think, is stay in your lane. And I'm going to piggyback on something. Well, let me talk about staying in your lane. Just like I talked about in the beginning of this episode, how easy it is to look at some other woman's idea of anything, whether it's self-care or any aspect of her life, and to feel bad about yours or feel like you need to adjust your life somehow. My encouragement to you is to stay in your lane. You go faster, you run better when you're not looking in either direction. And then the other thing is what we talked about at the beginning of the episode. We both have a mutual friend whose business is just taking off. And I just want,
Yay.
for people out there who may feel like they're struggling and they're working really hard and not seeing the results, I was mentioning to you a quote that I'm attributing to Oprah, but I know she didn't say it. But she says it often, and that is that luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Mm-hmm. And so as you're out there building and doing the thing and you're feeling like nothing's happening, you are building the preparation so that when the opportunity comes, it will happen. It's not luck, it's you preparing. So that's just my little bit of encouragement for today.
And good encouragement, because we need to be encouraged to be authentically ourselves and to be okay with staying in our lane and not crossing over. The worst accidents happen when we cross over into someone else's lane. And gosh. And
Yeah.
luck is when opportunity meets preparation. Because
Never
we never
know.
know, right, Zoe? You never know when that moment's going to come. Like our friend Rosie, I'm saying her name. She and you just she was ready. And listeners, be ready. Get this book. As you heard, it is everywhere.
You can reach
Where
me.
can we reach
It's
you, Dr.
at
Zoe?
Dr. Zoe Shaw. That's all of my social medias. My website, Dr. Zoe Shaw, DrZoeShaw.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. But you know what? I also want to say this. If someone wanted to meet with you, coach with you, some type of therapy sessions, they can also use your
Yes,
website.
they can
to
reach out to me on my socials, and my email, I believe it might be on my website, but it's the same, Zoe at drzoeshaw.com.
Okay. All right, you ladies and gentlemen, you heard it. You heard it here. Thank you for listening to the Strong Woman's Network podcast and Dr. Zoe Shaw, a very special guest, and her book, A Year of Self-Care, Daily Practices and Inspiration for Caring for Yourself. And you can find it everywhere. Thank you, Dr. Zoe.
Okay,
And I
thank
will see you
you.
next time, okay?
Bye.
You're welcome.